everyone! Today I'm going to be taking this operetta doll and turning her into a space-themed girl. As always, to start, I cut off her hair at the base of her head with some small scissors. Then I take her head off and go in with a pair of pliers to pull out all the plugs. Now that all her hair is completely gone, I can paint her now. I choose to paint her black, like the night sky. I definitely should not have started painting her yet, since I wanted to give her a fantasy theme, and I had in mind giving her long, pointy ears. So after a couple coats of the face, I finally remembered to do that, and then afterward I paint those black as well. Starting with the joints and then working around the rest of the body, I painted it completely black. Also, the joints were a complete waste of time, they end up chipping off later. I paint the scalp white for now. At the time, I didn't know what hair color I was going to do yet, so I just painted it white to buy myself some time. On all her extremities, I start painting a dark blue, and then add a light blue and a purple, making a galaxy. I really shouldn't have bothered showing you the purple on the ears, since you can't see them anyway. And as it turns out, I didn't show it on any other body part either. But I did show myself painting the blue parts, which is basically the whole process. I cautiously pop her head back on. I was really scared since I was squeezing the temples where her ears are, but it all came out fine in the end. Afterward, I start on her face. I paint in the whites of the eye, but they're not going to stay white for very long, so I only bother doing like 1 or 2 coats. Then I start painting in a galaxy in her eye. This was challenging for me to do, since this was really the biggest project I've done where I've painted galaxy, excluding that one galaxy knife, which turned out very terrible. I tried to make both the eyes different, so painting different colors in different places, since I didn't want them to be the exact same, or that would be too boring. Once I'm happy with where all the colors are, I dot in some stars in her eyes. The ones that I did with my paintbrush were way too big, so I took my smallest dotting tool and just dotted them in that way. I also put them on all her extremities where I painted the galaxy earlier. Before I paint the stars on her arms and legs, I go over them with a watery white paint. This makes the galaxy look more foggy, and I just thought it looked better this way. I also painted these constellations off camera since they were so tiny. On her right leg is the constellation Sagittarius, and on her left leg is one constellation that I don't recognize, and the Big Dipper. Then on her arms I painted these 2 constellations. I realized that there are faster ways to paint stars on a galaxy, but I wanted them all in specific places, so I took my paintbrush and painted the teeny tiniest little dots all over her legs and arms. After I paint all the stars, I go in with some glow-in-the-dark paint. Spoiler, this doesn't work. I paint her nails white. They were so tiny. I'm just realizing that I was on a very long tangent, so let's get back to her face. I paint on some glossy varnish over her eyes. I do a couple coats of this so that her eyes are super shiny. Then I paint on a constellation on her forehead. I didn't like this in the end, so I painted over it with black. Also, I attempted some eyelashes this time. I don't quite know how well they came out, but I like them, so they're sticking. Then I painted on her eyebrows, and had finally decided on a color for her hair. light blue. So I paint over her scalp with the appropriate color. Then I start gluing on all the wefts. There was really only one hairstyle I could go with here, space buns. It would be illegal not to. Also, I did a little moon design on her forehead instead of the constellation. Once all the wefts are on, she looks like she has a pretty wild mohawk going on, so I use some hair ties to tie her hair out of the way. Then I take a weft of a darker blue and wrap it around the pigtails. And then I do the same thing for the lighter blue. This will add some variety and color in her space buns. I take those pigtails and then fold them over with hot glue to make the buns. Also, I didn't mention it, so I'll mention it here quickly. I gave her some little gray freckles. For her clothes, I'm gonna give her a thinner layer and then a big poofy jacket. So I take my tunic pattern and give it a smaller sleeve. I love this pattern so much because you can just cut it out and then fold it over like so, and you're done, basically, because the sleeves are already attached. This tunic will be long enough to be considered a dress, but it's pretty boring right now, so I paint on a blue stripe going along the bottom, and in the middle I paint it into a purple fade, then back into blue to go on the other side. I paint on some dots and little stars to go all over the bottom of the dress. I will quickly change my mind about the paint and switch to beads instead. You'll see. As nice as the paint is, I wanted it to be shinier, so I added these beads instead. Now for her jacket, I just take my tunic pattern again and make it larger. Then I cut it out of this dark blue fabric and sew it all together. I turn it right side out and sew a collar onto it. Once it's on, I paint a light blue gradient on the bottom of the coat. Now, I don't know about you guys, but this just looks like a regular old coat to me. So at this point, I scrap it and start again. So I make the pattern bigger and the sleeves bell out more. Then I do the whole sewing process again, and it looks like this. I like it a lot better, honestly. Instead of a collar, this time I sew on this little shawl piece. Then on the front, where I put the snaps, I painted some buttons white and glue them on. Around the trim of the shawl, I paint on a white border so that you can actually see it in the sea of blue. I add on some white sequins that I will later change to black, then paint on a big star shape right above it. The sleeves needed a little something, so I drew on a shape in a Sharpie which you can't see, then paint on blue and purple, making a soft gradient between blue to purple. After it's dry, I go over it with a white outline so that you can actually see it better. Sticking with the black sequins, I add one to each tip of the design, so there's 3 on each sleeve. I use the back of a thumbtack since it's a perfect circle, and use white paint to make a moon. I wanted to do a moon trim around the bottom of it, with each phase getting smaller and smaller as it goes. So first I do a gibbous moon, then half moon, and a crescent moon. I continue the pattern along the back, and now the jacket is done. So let's make her a scarf now. I cut out 3 of these little triangles and then fit it around her neck. It fits loosely, so it's perfect. I sew them together, then paint a light blue border around the whole thing, which I will later end up changing my mind about. For the scarf, I use white sequins instead of the black sequins that I used earlier, so that it differs a bit from the coat. I take a rectangle and paint a blue border around it. This will be the collar of it. After it's on, I paint some stars onto the triangle pieces. I try it on the doll and then realize that the collar is too light and small to lay down like I want it to. So I sew it in place to make it artificially stay down. Right before I called it finished, I realized I didn't like the blue border since it gave it more of an ice effect rather than a space effect, so I traded it out for a dark purple. I'm gonna keep it real simple for the shoes, since most of the focus has been on the face, coat, and hair. I take these heels and turn them into wedges with clay. Once that's dry, I cut off the little wings on the top, then paint it white. Then I paint the shoes light gray. And I'm really sorry, but I really wanted to get these done, so I do the rest of the shoe process off camera, but here they are. And then she's done. I've decided to name her Astra, since it means of the stars, and I think that's pretty appropriate for this doll. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. See ya!